Hi everybody, just a quick post-interview edit that I'm doing. Hope you've all had a good Christmas and hope you're all having a great new year. I just wanted to add a quick note that after the interview with Jacqueline that you're about to listen to, we had half an hour before the train took her back home. And so we had a quick drink, and as we were talking, she mentioned that the relationship was destabilizing, which I thought was an interesting choice of words. So when we were chatting and I delved a little bit more deeply into that, basically what she was saying is that the relationship had affected her greatly. I've asked her permission for this, and she has said that she's all right with me saying that she is now seeing a psychologist. The relationship was so affecting that it's affected her work. She can no longer work, and clearly she's not in another relationship. And while we had so much to talk about during the interview and so much things that we didn't cover, I just wanted to put that in your mind. So as you're listening to the podcast, it doesn't come across as just a woman who's scorned and is trying to get revenge. This is a relationship that massively affected Jacqueline and her mental state, and that's the reasoning behind what she's done and why she's done it. And it's more about gaining power back, gaining some more self-worth, and going back to the person that she was before the relationship started. So I enjoyed the conversation. It was really interesting. I hope you do too. And thanks, as always, to listening to Diary of a Private Investigator.
Welcome to episode 19 of Diary of a Private Investigator. My name is Nathan. I am the owner and lead investigator of Dolos Investigations, based in Sheffield and Doncaster in the UK. So today's episode is going to be another interview. I'm genuinely excited about our next guest, and that is because not only does she have a story of psychosexual dominance and power-based relationship, she was the other woman, but also she was a genuine client of mine. And why I'm interested in, not only is her story really interesting, but it's the first time I've had a genuine client on the show, and I want to ask her about how she went about choosing a private investigator, the pitfalls, the research, all that kind of thing. So we'll investigate that, and then she's going to tell us the story of her. I've written down the world of BDSM. That's a bit of a teaser for you to keep you interested. If ever there was a thing to keep you interested in this podcast, if you just didn't like the sultry tones of me, and I'm the main draw for the podcast. A bit of housekeeping. buymeacoffee.com/DOAPI if you want to donate some money to buy me a coffee. It bought these, if you're on the YouTubes, it bought these fancy Dolos investigation mugs. No expense spared there. I'm still getting emails from people, which amazes me, because so far everybody's been quite positive and the feedback's great. So thanks for that. Diary of a Private Investigator @gmail.com. And last episode, I told you that I've got a new sponsor. It's the person that does my SEO. So if you are thinking about running your own business or have your own business, or you want to improve the SEO of your website, then I do recommend Fisher SEO. Fisher is FISHER. Fisher SEO. He's based in Sheffield. Obviously, he works remotely, so he can take clients on all over the country. If you do contact him, please say that Nathan sent you, because we need to work out how much business I'm sending his way, how many inquiries he's got. He'll then continue to sponsor the show. And that's about it. We are going to jump straight into the interview. I'm not going to bore you with all the preamble like I normally do. We're going to get straight onto it. And this, I've titled this one, The Jacqeline Allen Story. It reminds me of the Carpenters, like the Karen Carpenter story.
Okay.
The Jacqeline Allen story. Jacqeline, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Nathan, for having me on the show.
No worries. So just to confirm, you are a genuine client of mine.
I am indeed.
We did not know each other up until about a month or two ago.
We did not.
And we've only just met for the first time physically about an hour ago.
That's correct. Yes.
Brilliant. So, going to get straight. I'll tell you what we'll do is we'll do it as like a two-parter type thing.
Okay.
I'm going to ask you some of the questions about, as a potential customer, how you sort of found the private investigation world. And then we're going to get into the story of how, I think if we call you the other woman, that kind of demeans the story that you're going to tell us, because it's part and parcel of the story, but there's also the whole world of the relationship that you had with this person, and the fact that they were actually married and actively met you, and where it took you in your journey.
They were married and I didn't know.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Oh, what did I say?
You didn't say that part.
All right. Okay. Yeah. You didn't know. You didn't go into it willingly. So, first question: as a lay person, I'm interested in your thoughts of private investigation.
I think it's probably not dissimilar to most people that it seems fascinating, alluring, and exciting, because it's that wanting to be a fly on the wall, so to speak, curiosity that I think a lot of us have. And let's face it, police shows, detective shows, they exist for a reason, and they're very successful for a reason, because we all have that curiosity. And so I don't know about other people, but I suspect it could be the same. You know, we all perhaps secretly wish we could hire a PI and be party to some investigative experience. But equally, you hope you never have to have that experience, because if you do, clearly something's going wrong. Yeah. So I had a friend who had engaged some years back to discover her husband cheating, and I remember at the time my friends and I were in awe and really impressed that she'd done it and it had been successful, but equally curious about the details and, you know, what did you do here and what happened there. Yeah. And so, yeah, there's always been, I think, a secret wish to maybe have a need.
That's a bit... yeah, it's one of those things that we were talking before, weren't we, sort of saying that my job is a bit like a divorce solicitor, that you kind of never know you need one until you need one. Yes. And then you're sort of scratching around thinking, where should I get one from? So yes. One of the other questions I've got, so you, one of the things that we did talk about is that your friend had a positive experience with a private investigator. So that kind of reinforced it for you that A, we do exist, but also B, we can do a credible job. Because one of the things that I say times many on this podcast is that in the UK, it's an unlicensed business, so anybody can call themselves a private investigator. So I'm curious, is that once you decided that you needed a private investigator, what sort of research did you do, or how did you find a private investigator?
Sure. I had read something about private investigators. It popped up in the Times or something. It was an article probably about a month or 6 weeks before I ended the relationship. And based on that article, I then looked up the actual agency that was in the article. And I'm not sure if it was actually Charlotte, because it was talking about a female private investigator. And then through Googling that, I then stumbled on some other PI's website. And at this stage of the relationship, I really was getting frustrated about the lack of transparency and inability to verify any of the things that he'd been saying about himself. And so stumbled on this website, ended up entering some details for a complimentary discussion. And then next thing I got a call. And so I had an interesting conversation with the person, more just to sort of see what the process was. I wasn't really intending to take that step at that stage. Personally, I've always had a belief, if you have to get to the stage of hiring a PI in your relationship, the relationship's already doomed. Yeah, I think your instincts are usually correct. Yeah. And I wasn't ready to confront or face that possibility myself. And so even though the individual was saying, yeah, no, it sounds like that person's having an affair or was in another relationship or something. I was like, no. But
Yeah,
I'm
you
not so
were in
sure.
denial,
I was
weren't
in
you?
denial.
You were in denial.
And I said, would you know? And then I said, well, what are the costs? And it was London prices. And I just said, well, I don't think this person has ever invested that much in me in the entire relationship. So no, I mean, I probably wouldn't see that as value for money at this stage. And also, I'm not there yet. So thank you very much for your time. Post breakup, 2 or 3 weeks into it, unable to close the loop. Things still weren't adding up. I hadn't been able to verify anything, and I was getting frustrated. And then I just thought, maybe my mind started to wander. Maybe it might be more useful to explore the possibility of a PI in the north, where this individual is from. One, they will know the area, they will know the mentality, and also maybe the prices are slightly different. And I honestly didn't know where to begin to look. Yes, you can plug it into Google, a whole list of names will come up, but I'd been using ChatGPT throughout part of this year with the relationship anyway in navigating certain things. And I just thought, well, this resource exists for a reason. Hello, ChatGPT. Who are the top 5 agencies in the north? It listed them. Of those 5, who are the top 2? It did the research for me, weighed up the pros and cons, and your name was one of the top 2.
Which I was pleasantly surprised to hear.
Yes.
Because ChatGPT is my friend.
Yes.
So it came up with me. That was good.
Came up with you, and it came up. It said, would you like me to prepare some questions for when you speak to them? Yes, please. Gave me the
Try not to bank table.
gave me the questions, and so then I called yourself and the other agency, and both of you sounded really reputable, really good, and I think I felt I had a bit more of a rapport with you. And then also you had different pricing structure as well, which was great because it allowed me sort of an entry point, a further entry point, or then a really advanced, research. Yeah. And that I think was probably a really good selling point for you, or engagement point, I should say. So that's when I said to you, look, give me 24 hours to think about it. And it was more affordable, and particularly for what you could offer at a certain price. And I just thought, I think for my peace of mind, it's worth it.
And you did really well as well, because after that phone call, I put all my prices up. Once you told me how cheap I was like, flipping heck, I could have made more money out of this. I'm doing something wrong. I love your honesty in that you've gone north for a bit cheaper prices, but that is also true, because I think London has its own price bracket. So you come with me. You've already answered all my questions. Literally, I had about 3 questions, and you just answered them all. So, how did you find me, and why choose Dolos? So, they're the things that I wanted to know. So, you're on the show because you wanted to tell a story about a relationship that you were in. You prepared a bit of a dossier document, which we'll get onto in a bit, but this document starts, and it's almost like the start of a story or a book. It says, "We read about husbands who serially cheat and women who unknowingly date married men with families. We wonder for a moment who they are and what they look like. The answer is they look like Archie and me." And that's how it starts. And just to clarify, Archie is not the real name of the person that we're talking about, who you had the relationship with. We're keeping them anonymous for now. So tell me how you met Archie.
The standard way, online, on Bumble, and he presented as single, 44 years of age, which is not true. And he had liked me on the app, and I didn't respond immediately, but that's how we met essentially.
So this person, as we've already spoiled, is married with a child and is actively on Bumble trying to date women.
Yes.
And the photograph used, was that a genuine photograph of what it looked like?
There was, I think, about 5 photographs in total. And what was a bit odd and already a bit of a red flag, the first photo was very much a close-up to the face, fine, nothing unusual. A couple of other photographs probably taken in the last couple of years, maybe in the last 4 years or so, and then some photos from when it was clearly 15, 20 years ago. So I thought that was odd, but at the same time helpful, because it gave me a picture of this person through their life, what they look like, and you can imagine, I guess, a little bit about them by seeing photos from their past.
I mean, what comes across as striking as well is you are an intelligent woman. So you and what is common when I talk to sort of clients, and what's common out there is that people think, oh, there was the red flags, I should have seen them, should have done this, should have done that. You've already identified a red flag from his profile, but you've kind of muted out that little voice in your head, and you've continued, and you've gone down the relationship. So you meet Archie, and tell us about the times that you sort of meet him and how the relationship develops.
So, yeah, just coming back to the meeting and then how it developed. I think, as I explained before, I was ready to get into a serious relationship, and with his profile, I'd noticed that possibly wasn't serious relationship material. And initially I was sort of trying to keep my eye on the ball and staying focused, but I'd been on the app for a month or so, met one or two nice people, never met them face to face. And I think there was a curiosity, and there was something about the profile. This individual struck me as someone who's intelligent, witty, funny, and a little bit had some interesting life experiences. One line indicated an interesting life experience, and a little bit different from most of the profiles that I was seeing. And I just thought, okay, well, if I am going to approach this individual or go back to this individual and connect with them, why would I be doing this? And so I went into exploring that, not with the view to see this as a serious relationship type of person, more because I just thought I'd really like to go out and have a coffee with someone or drink with someone who presents like this, someone who's interesting, and he's clearly very funny, witty, so I think we could have a good laugh and things. And I was keen to start getting out and dating, because it's all part of the experience, and you don't want to end up with the very first person that you meet. So effectively it's that thing of try and get a few under your belt. And just in terms of meeting and dating, and how do you improve your skills? By practice, and so yeah, I went into it open-minded and not attached to any outcome. I was very clear with myself, don't expect much from this person, this individual. I fully expected that they may disappear from one second to the next. And if that happened, that's okay. I will have had an interesting experience, maybe some laughs. That's okay.
Yeah.
And so reached out to the individual, and they responded the very next day. And within about the first 5 or 6 texts, already the temperature had just gone up completely. The way they engaged almost from the beginning was, it started off just normally. I was asking him about a joke on his profile and things, and then I'd ask something else, and then it's not that it was sexual, but it was definitely playful and cheeky. There was something very cheeky, and I mean, the response, the third or fourth response, effectively was so outrageous. I nearly spat my coffee out.
Right.
I was laughing. I couldn't stop laughing, and that's how I that's how the relationship developed. I mean, he was able to make me laugh with absurdities. Well, they weren't absurdities; they were, titillating comments and things like that. But they landed as absurd. So absurd they made me laugh.
Yeah.
And humor is it's a great attraction tool.
I think Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks has a comment on that about a good sense of humour about his wife. I can't remember what it is, and
Right.
if anybody can remember, if you know who Mel Brooks is, obviously he wrote Blazing Saddles, one of my favourite films. Because we'll not go down that avenue. But he talks about, so obviously good sense of humour for a man. And what is interesting as I sort of listen to you, so you've. Hopefully I'm going to summarise this right. You're sort of saying that you're testing the waters, you're wanting a relationship. And I'm not on dating websites, so I don't know where Bumble rates on whether it's, I hear certain websites that basically people just meet up and have sex.
Yes. It's not one of those ones.
Is it for professionals or is it just a more classy, genuine dating site?
I thought it was more classy. I just thought it was more people that are more sincere about having real relationships per se. But, I've been on it a few times recently, not engaging with anyone at this stage. But I could see more clearly now there are people there just out to have fun, or there's ethical, non-monogamous couples out there, and but they're stating up front those sorts of things. Whereas Hinge and Tinder, I've never been on either of those, but as I understand them, the premise of those is more of a hookup scenario. But many relationships, I believe, have come out of those too.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, I approach it with a sense of naivety and exploration, because I don't enter into that world. Because as people who listen to me know, I've been married for 103 years next year. In fact, it'll be our anniversary. So I don't go on those kind of sites. But the point what I'm trying to make is you were exploring a relationship. But it wasn't as base as I just want to have sex. You were exploring a proper relationship. You're a professional. This person who we're talking about is also a professional. And the reason I say that is because I'm laying the foundation down of you've gone into this relationship. It's got a little bit frisky in the text messages, and it kind of develops and it goes down. Obviously, what part of the story is it develops into a world of BDSM and all that kind of business. I'm interested in how it progressed.
Yes,
to that.
certainly. I can't say that I entered into it with the view to get into a relationship with this individual. Once the temperature was hotting up, and then it was just the attunement. I mean, the psychological attunement, and we clicked, and sparring, and it was just a lot of fun. And I then was at that stage thinking, oh, well, this is a lot of fun, and let's just have some fun then. And I still wasn't seeing it as serious relationship material. I knew I was going home back to Australia for lengthy Christmas and lengthy holidays, but spending time with family, about 2 to 2.5 months. So, and it was 2 months just at the time that I met him, and I just thought, I'll put a time limit on this, have some fun for a couple of months. I'm sure it'll fizzle out. I'm sure he'll disappear. And so decided to proceed on that basis. However, I think we had one date, and it was a dinner date, and went really well. And then a few more days of texting, and we eventually met up face-to-face privately. That happened once, and then a few more times, but almost from the second time we met up privately, he then started this whole love bombing process, which I initially understood love bombing as, taking people out to dinner and having great experience and things like that. Whereas this was more of him being at my home, because we never actually ended up going to his place. The one time we had planned to do it, which was supposed to be the second time we'd meet. The first time we'd met outside of a restaurant, he stood me up. So it ended up being at my place. But within those couple of encounters, what I recognize now as love bombing, it was we have great, the wording, we have great chemistry and I love you and, I'm starting to think seriously about you. And I just thought it was absurd. Again, this absurdity. I mean, it's just, you've met me 3 times. What are you talking about? And then he would look at me like I was mad. But I realize now, I think he was scanning me to find out how much of it I was buying or buying into.
So was he saying this to your face then? Or
to my face.
Right,
yes,
okay.
Yes.
Because I instantly went into text messages then when you were sort of talking about love bombing, because that's, again, traditionally love bombing is bombarding somebody with messages. So he's actually saying, I think I love you on the 3rd day in front of you.
Yes. And he would come to my place and it would be very intense, but it would become very intense immediately, but he'd been saying these things, and I just thought, well, maybe he's just a bit immature. It's just, which is odd because I think you're 44 or something, really. And also, what's the other thing I was going to say? I don't know, or excited. I just thought perhaps he's just really excited, and but at the same time, it's just. I mean, you can't say those things to someone and expect them to believe you've only met them 2 or 3 times. Anyway, so there was a moment where I thought, gosh, if this person is really having these feelings, actually maybe I should stop this here, because they could get really hurt. And then I thought, he's a grown man. He can look after himself. He can look after himself. I'm sure he'll be fine. And and he seemed to, I was having fun, and he certainly seemed to be having fun. And I just thought, I'll just let this continue. And so it was over the next 2 months. I still didn't see that it was going anywhere serious, even though he was saying all of these things. And was texting every single day and things like that, but never making actual plans like you would in a normal dating way. So that's the other reason why I couldn't take it entirely seriously. But he laid the groundwork, the foundation for me being able to explain things away very early on. And so then over a period of time, the continual communication, and when I went back to Australia, it was every single day there was communication, and that was a point where I thought, well, he would probably just disappear then.
Yeah.
He had said over dinner before I left, however, when he found out that I was going back, and then how long for, when I said 2.5 months, he sort of swallowed and he said, "That's okay, I'll wait for you." And even that I found absurd. I just thought, why not wait till I get back and we'll see how things go? Yeah,
it's funny, isn't it? Because it's kind of, I do this all the time when I'm interviewing people, and I kind of listen, and I'm sort of thinking of things. It's almost like he's got his rev counter up to 9,000 revs constantly, and he's obviously testing you. And if obviously if he breaks you, he'll turn the rev counter down, but he's constantly sort of cooking you on a high.
That's
heat.
A really good way of putting it.
And doing it that way, but equally, so that's almost like his if he is that manipulative and calculating in what he is wanting to achieve, because clearly he has his agenda, because as we've already said, he's married, and he obviously wants to do certain things with you, but also you're also picking up on the red flags, but you kept at such a a speed that you're kind of almost ignoring the red flags, the back of your head saying, watch out for this, watch out for that, but you're still going down. So I'm interested in that journey, because you mentioned Charlotte at the start of your story, Charlotte Tollan, who you listened to sort of back in, I think it was episode 13, where she talks about a coercive and controlling relationship that she was in. Your story is similar. We have spoken briefly about your relationship, and you sort of said you never felt he was coercive and controlling towards you. So you have a similar parallel story, but obviously the point of, for me anyway, why I find it interesting is because I think it's important that you get your story out there, so anybody that listens to your story can maybe reflects upon their own life and thinks, oh, actually, yeah, I've heard that. And people, because these kind of people, these kind of narcissists is one term that you can use, generally have a similar character. And you've what I do find interesting as well is that you've mentioned to me off air that you've actually read about sort of relationships and what's a healthy relationship and things about that. Tell me about
where did things go wrong?
Yeah. So like I said, this is. I mean, I'm not trying to embarrass you, but what I'm trying to highlight, the fact is that you're going into this. You're alive to what's happening. You're intelligent, and you've read books about relationships. Yet you've still sort of found yourself going down.
Yeah,
it's almost like dragged down. You're not gone down unwillingly. You've entered into what happens. You've given consent, but maybe in retrospect, was it true consent? Is that a bit strong?
Well, in retrospect, it clearly wasn't consent. On the second date, I said, I asked outright. In his profile, it said, he's single, looking for a long-term relationship. So the second date, I said, are you married? Do you have a girlfriend? Do you have children? No to all of those. The erotic texting and all that sort of thing, it was, he was introducing themes of BDSM and what have you. And one tends to think of that on the physical side, but really what this ended up being more about was much more on the psychological, psychosexual side. And it's that titillation and that excitement. It was fun, and that's why I kept going into it, kept going down it, and we had this polarity, and we were able to, playing off each other, where he's pushing and I'm pushing back, and the power dynamic would shift, back and forth continuously. And so I felt that it was all in hand, and it was a level playing field and just mutual play. I had read as I said, I'd done a lot of, I guess, inner work, and I'd been following a couple of great relationship psychologists. And, I know what a healthy relationship looks like, and I've been in healthy relationships. And the thing is, the circumstances that he laid up front led me to believe that they were the reason why we weren't able to spend more time together or see each other on weekends and things like that. When things weren't ending, when he hadn't disappeared and I was going back to Australia, I just thought, okay, let's see how this goes. He's saying all of these things. I find it unusual that you would say all those things up front and so early on. But okay, if you mean that, then I will give you the rope, and let's see what you do with it. If your behavior at the end of the day will show me what's real. And where I got tricked a bit, I suppose, is the fact that he kept showing up every day just with text messaging. And I thought, well, that was probably one thing that I was blind to, is the fact that that the fact they're communicating every day means they're saying they're serious and they are showing up in a sense. Perhaps he is serious, but
was there a pattern to when he used to message you? I.e., would you get more messages during the day and less messages of an evening?
No, it was more about how erotic the messages were, and there'd be more engagement. And then if it was, if I was trying to have a conversation of depth or go back and forth on other subjects, then actually there wasn't much messaging. And I think it was, it was the erotic stimulation that he was probably after, and the playing, that was the amusement for him. And while it was amusing for me, it wasn't all that I wanted as well. I wanted more. And so
you wanted an emotional relationship as well, not just the playful relationship.
So I gave myself a time frame. I just thought, okay, well, I'm in Australia. I'm not going to be looking for a relationship out there. I'm seeing family, enjoying the sun, having a lovely time with friends as well. And this guy is texting back and forth, and I'm getting this erotic stimulation, and it's fun. Lots of laughs, some suffering as well, because there was this psychosexual sadism thing as well. And so he was playing these power games, dominance and submission, and it had never been explained to me, but I guess I just sort of naturally slipped into it, either pushing back or playing along. And so it just felt like fun, but there were times when it wasn't, when you couldn't communicate with the person, they weren't available, and then deliberately not actually speaking to you.
Do you think that was mind games, or do you think that was because he was with his wife?
Mind games.
Right.
Really mind games. And I can look back on things now and go, yes, that incident was deliberate cruelty.
Yeah.
Deliberately making me suffer psychologically, I suppose. Psychologically, because you can't understand it. You're not sure, why would they be doing that? Surely they care. Surely there was some consideration there. So when I came back, as I said to friends at the time as well, look, this guy says he's serious. I'm not getting entirely serious energy in some respects. I am in others, the fact that he keeps showing up. So when I got back, I really tried to nail down with him, look, are you serious? If you're not, don't waste my time. And I didn't put it quite like that. I was trying to get proper engagement and things. But he had laid this narrative of these sick parents, from day one, and then that was constantly his default and his fallback.
Yeah, we've not really touched upon that. I mean, you mentioned he was from up north. His parents still live up north, and that was part of the reason why he came to me. But that was he used parents' illness as an excuse. Cancer? Did he say it was?
First, it was alcoholism. At the very first, date, it comes up. He comes from a family of drug and alcoholic addiction. He'd left home at 16, or left the area at 16, and that, yes, his father was an alcoholic, and now he was very ill, and it was unlikely he was going to make it to Christmas. Therefore, most weekends he was up north, visiting, helping the family as such. And then when I got back from Australia, it was, sometime in January, February, I ended up moving up north. He said his father then got diagnosed with tongue cancer.
It's because the reason I ask certain questions to elicit certain answers, and it's like I've already sort of said, he's keeping you right at breaking point, and because obviously on the first date, to mention that you come from a broken family of alcoholics and drug misuse, a lot of people are going to be like, "Whoa, what am I getting into here? Let's end this relationship," because there's a good chance that if you're brought up in a relationship like that, you're going to be a little bit broken yourself. But yet at the same time, it appeals to your nurturing side and an emotional side of, I can help this person, I can bring them on and develop them as a wholesome person, and or I feel sorry for this person. There's a whole array of emotions that's attached, and it's almost sometimes like, because to some degree, it's almost like a fraudster. When you get a fraudster ringing you up saying you've won £1 million, all you need to do it. They don't come out with it like that anymore. There's a whole flow chart of elicit this response. If they say this, you go to this. If you say that, you go to that. And then eventually, after 10 phone calls and messages, eventually you get the bank details and you get the money. With the relationship sort of side of things and the relationship that you're describing, it's almost something very, very similar. That he's testing, he's pushing, and where he gets a positive response, then he pursues that line. And if he gets a shut door on one response, he obviously then doesn't go there and he goes somewhere else. And it's like I said, these kinds of people have got similar characteristics and personality traits.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how the relationship ended then, because obviously there's more to the story. So we go through this kind of relationship, and I know you talked about there are physical rules and psychological rules. You were comfortable with the physical side of things, but the psychologically part of the relationship you weren't comfortable with.
So I've heard of BDSM like most people. I really didn't know much about it. I perhaps have had negative connotations or impressions, just things that you pick up, from around, but without actually giving them any proper consideration. When he introduced this sort of new world to me, not much on the physical side. He did walk me through some basic concepts of, for safety, traffic light system, safe word. It all sounded very interesting.
50 Shades.
Yes. And to be honest, I never felt physically unsafe. And also, really, I don't think the experience was that dramatic, that extreme, that people in that community call people outside of it vanilla, I suppose. And for me, really, things didn't get much beyond vanilla, from what I know. He never really talked in great depth about that community or how it's run or things like that. And because I went back to Australia shortly after having met him, and then I was left out there for 2.5 months, excited by all of this, but also wondering more about it and deciding to use some of my time there to maybe research it a bit and learn a bit more, because he hadn't really explained much. And it was in doing that, and you ended up in Reddit threads, I started learning so much more and realizing how little he had actually shared with me, and the confusion that I had been experiencing about not really having a say in things or talking about it wasn't right. And what I learnt, and then even going through the relationship, is that he himself claimed to have had extensive experience in this world, and therefore, realistically, he should have been conducting himself in a very different manner, and he wasn't. He was breaking all the rules of that, all the tenets of that community, which is all about safety, security, mutual agency, mental and psychological safety is paramount, and that then with whatever games you're playing, whether they're psychological or physical, there has to be, pre-discussions, pre-agreements, verbally or written, and then aftercare, checking in, making sure you're okay. All of that sort of thing is an important part of it. And
So you've read around the topic. So you're educated, to quote my dad, and you've gone so you instantly recognise that he's not playing to the rules of the game.
Yes, I started to recognise, and then on a phone call in Australia, I said, "Hey, listen. So I've been reading about this stuff, and I don't recall us, having these conversations and things like that." And the thing is, he was playful with everything, so even his response was playful, and because he could make me laugh, then I'd sort of let it go. And and that was one of his, I guess, manipulation tactics. And I said, look, as I understand it, within this community, and he started shutting me down straight away. He said, look, that's that community. Our community is just you and me, and it's whatever goes on between us. Okay, fine, but any chance we could talk about some of this? And it just didn't happen.
So this is, I don't know if it is slightly unusual, but it's all right. In your story, you end the relationship. So what was the catalyst to you ending the relationship? As I said, I'd given myself a time frame when I got back from Australia to really try and work out whether this was serious, and then if it was serious, at what point were some of the behaviors that weren't healthy or weren't conducive to a relationship, are they going to change? And he was able to convince me that, I just need to get through this and all that sort of thing. And so it carried on for a few more months, and there was still the extreme, really fun times together, and then the sparring, etc. But more and more, I was just starting to notice that I was really not getting out of it, the full scope of what I wanted, if this is to be a relationship, and that things weren't changing. With his family, it was one illness after another with regards to his father as such, and then he introduced an illness of his own. And then it got to around getting towards June, and I was really starting to think, okay, I don't have any more time to waste. And I did try approaching things, discussing things, and saying, look, it's a problem here as such. I was actually starting to psychologically shut down, emotionally shut down, and I thought this is really not good. You talked about when we talked about this beforehand, you were sort of saying that you feel like you've come from a position of advantage because of your maturity and your experience in other relationships, and the fear, and again, I'm going to paraphrase for you, that part of the reason for the story is because you kind of want to highlight to other people who aren't as experienced in life and relationships that you need to identify the red flags, and you need to listen to that little voice in the back of your head. And you fortunately have ended this relationship because you've used the skills that you have as an adult, and also you're sort of reading about things, you're researching things. You've come out of the relationship. You've then obviously, I'm conscious of time.
Yes,
we could talk about this for hours. So you come out of the relationship. You decide. You obviously do the research into a private investigator, which we covered right at the very, very start, because that was a bit that I was interested for my own market research. You employ me, and obviously you get provided with a report that shows that actually this person is married. Does have a child, does live near to you, so there are elements of truth. And one thing that I want to highlight, which, if we can inject some sort of humour into this this topic, is when you first rang me and you were sort of explaining the story, within like a minute I just went, he's married. And you were like, no, he's not, because blah blah, and you kept on talking, and then you'd sort of say, yeah, and then like with his calls, he sometimes answers, sometimes doesn't, and I'm like, yes, because he's married, and you're like, no, and you kept on talking, I kept saying it to you, and then after about 5 or 10 minutes, you kind of like went, do you think he really could be? And I was like, it's nailed on. It's absolutely nailed on. And and I've said this again in the podcast. Part of my job, or a large part of my job, is to give somebody closure. And I think you like you said, you were 99% already there, or 90% there. You kind of needed the confirmation, and so you hired me. We did the research, but again, the interesting bit, and a lot of the times I do get asked by clients when we have to give the bad news of that, yes, this person is seeing somebody else, whether it's extramarital or whatever. So what I find is that once I've given the bad news to the client, quite often they will say to me, "What shall I do now?" And I always dodge it like a good politician and sort of say, well, everybody deals with it in their own way. What you deal with, that, how you have that information and handle that information is up to you. I can't tell you how to respond. And you kind of went into the category of, I'm going to approach the wife. And I kind of like went, if that's what you want to do, then that's what you want to do. But obviously there's certain laws, and we had a bit of a conversation about the pitfalls and the pros and cons of doing it. But you kind of,
I was adamant.
Yeah. And you're not sort of crazy woman. It was a considered response on your part.
Yeah.
So explain to me your thought process regarding that you wanted and did approach his wife.
Yeah. A couple of reasons. I have had, I've already told you about one girlfriend who has had a husband who cheated on her, I think somewhat prolifically through their short, 7 or 8 year marriage and 2 children. And in the meantime, I was already helping another girlfriend who had just discovered her partner had been serially cheating. I mean, they'd been married for just over 20 years, together probably for 25 years. And I mean, the devastation is immense. And what I know is that, particularly the friend I was have been helping, she's like, if somebody had known sooner, I wish they would have told me. And I think, even for myself, if I was with someone and someone knows that they're having an affair, then I certainly myself would want to know, because you're losing potentially years, decades of your life, and also every memory that you create with that person is then tainted, and ultimately you want to be living a life full of memories that are untainted. And finally, everybody has the right to, consent. To have informed choice, I suppose. And so you're living a life without informed choice. And once we'd found the evidence, you'd presented the report, and then my girlfriend and I had done the extra work and found that he was married, etc. It's just like, well, I didn't consent to that. And I just thought, God, also the level of anxiety I was experiencing, and I wasn't married to this person. I suspect there's something going on the other side as well. And I don't know, I feel, my belief is that the wife will want to know.
Yeah.
And
so it wasn't revenge or home wrecking, or I'll get you back by giving you a piece of what you've given to me. It was more to help the wife out, to give her the information.
I think it would be no. I mean, I think there's a part of me. It wasn't so much. It's interesting. It didn't feel revenge wasn't really what it was that I was trying to achieve. I was trying to level the playing field, actually. So partly it was the wife and concern for what they're living through, but also part of it for me was like, I've just been involved for 11 months with this individual, not knowing anything that's true. All of a sudden, here is the truth. So I've been on this unlevel playing field for so long. I need to level the playing field. I need to balance the power, and I need to get back my agency as well. And then also there was, I don't know if this qualifies as revenge, but it's like, no, you can't just come into my life and mess around with it for 11 months and walk away clear.
Scot-free, yeah.
There are consequences. Life is all about consequences, and now you will get to experience yours. And so my consequences were choosing to engage with this person in the first place. Some good experiences, some bad ones. And then, yes.
So you did your own surveillance
Oh, yes.
on where he
I'm an
lives.
expert.
Tell us about your experience doing your own surveillance rather than hiring me to do the surveillance for you, as I suggested.
Well, I think it's when you said, look, we could sit there for 5 hours at X fee and we still might not get the evidence. We have to come back a second day. And I just went, well, I don't have an abundance.
You should have
Cash
moved
to
up
throw.
north. You're as tight as I am. I don't know why you're living in London town. You should come up north with me. I'm not paying for that. You charge how much? So you did it yourself,
No,
didn't you?
Well, you did look into finding someone for me, and then they were being tricky. And I think you agreed with me that actually maybe just for the first day, just go and have a go yourself.
Yeah, he was taking the piss, the agent down south, shall we say, on his fees, what he wanted to charge me.
Yeah, and I mean, we haven't discussed this here. I think I've said it to you before, but I mean, once you handed over the report, my girlfriend, I shared it with my girlfriend who had been helping on her side of the things with her relationship. And we were like two dogs fighting over a bone, I guess, for want of a better analogy. But I mean, there was all this material and we had to do the extra research. And it was, for about a week, every day we were calling each other saying, oh, and I found this out. Oh, and did you see that? And da-da-da-da. Because once we found her social media profile, the wife's social media profile, and he was all over it. And so I jokingly said to her, look, we were talking about the surveillance, I said, I've ordered some binoculars. And I said, worst case scenario, at least I'll have them for the theatre.
And a newspaper with 2 eye holes.
I did have a newspaper.
Oh, for God's sake.
But it sat over the top.
Sure.
Just at one point.
Yeah, the false glasses. It was the moustache that gave it away, was it? As you were sat there with your Groucho Marx moustache and glasses.
Well, listen, you had said something about, you get there at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I thought, oh, God, okay. So I did get there at 6. And the reality is nothing comes alive on the street until about 7:30. So it's an hour and a half.
But you were on the street, weren't you?
I wasn't on the street. I was up a driveway and at one point hidden behind a wall and a good, like a good distance from the front door. And there were bushes and trees in front. And I moved the position slightly, sort of then standing out the front of this place. I had checked all around me from behind. No one could see me looking down from the buildings above.
Yeah.
Opposite, it was a very leafy street rather.
Yeah.
And again, periodically with my binoculars, checking the other windows.
Right. And this is the part where Jacqeline explains what third-party compromise is.
Yes. So there was one individual that came out of the apartment across the road, and I thought, oh, that's great. If she goes out, I could maybe pop in there and just see what the apartments are like on the inside. And then she just stood at the end of the porch, effectively, and lit up a cigarette and stood there staring at me.
Yeah, letting you know that she'd seen you.
Oh, yes.
When you told me about it, I think I get a slightly different bit. I was aghast that the police weren't called for some sort of stalker coming to you. But we'll skip over that bit. So you did actually.
So I did a bit of reconnaissance.
Yeah, you got the wife coming out, and you served
the
her.
child coming out, and then I saw the wife and daughter coming out a little bit later, and then there was no activity after that, and I hung around a bit longer, nothing. So I didn't have the material that I wanted to hand over to her with me anyway, and I thought I'll come back the next morning with that. As advised by you. And so the next day, I didn't actually make it there at 6 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock. I slept through, which I decided was fine. We hadn't been able to identify where she works. So this is why we had to do the surveillance. And my friend and I decided, well, actually, we determined that she does a certain type of work whereby it's not necessarily regular hours. So she might be coming home later in the afternoon, and why not go in the afternoon with the information, which was great because it was very busy during that time. I got there about 4 o'clock at the tube station, came out. I had packed so when we talk about the information, what I decided to present her with with was the full WhatsApp transcript between Archie and myself over the entire course of the relationship.
You left no doubt in her mind that the relationship had taken place, because I've got, I obviously got a copy of what you'd written. It was eloquently written. It wasn't.
That was for the parents, the copy that you got. You didn't get her.
Or did I not get her copy?
No, I can send you that. Hers was a cover letter. It was a printout of his Bumble profile, and then the full WhatsApp transcript of the 11 months. And the cover letter was very respectful and saying, look, this is going to be difficult and very painful to read. I understand that. And blah, blah, blah. But it's what your husband's been up to. Just a brief bit about, this is how I met him. This is what's in the documentation within. And here's my contact number. I'm amenable to a one-time call if you have any questions as such. In the event that I didn't actually get to speak to her much, or just had to hand it over and run or something. And I packed it in a brown envelope, and then I put it into a Tesco bag such that if she had to take it home, it was inconspicuous. And then went down in the afternoon, started walking up the hill towards their place, trying to work out where I might sit or wait. And incredibly, she just all of a sudden appeared on the other side of the street, walking down the street. So again, having, you'd advised me how to sort of approach this and things to say. I went up to her and said, are you such and such? She said, yes. And I said, look, I have some documents for you. And I literally just placed them in her hand. She said, oh, thank you. And I said, look, with this documentation, I suggest that you make sure when you read it, you're somewhere quiet and alone and not rushed. And she said, what's in it? And I said, look, it's information about what your husband's been up to for the last 11 months. And then she looked at me, and this was the most telling comment of all, and said, is he your husband? Which shocked me, but in that second, it told me that clearly she has suspicions. Clearly she thinks he is capable of such deceit. Extraordinary. Yeah. And I said, no, he's not my husband. He's your husband. I said, but he's been involved with someone for the last 11 months. And she said, oh, do you know her? And I said, I am her. But I didn't know he was married at the time. And I said, I broke up with him a little while ago. I found out several weeks ago about you. And I just felt you deserved to know. And then her next comment was, I knew it. I knew something. I just knew it. And she said, I've just been waiting for a sign, for something that I could prove it. And I said, well, you have everything there. It's all in that thing, dossier. And then there was just a few questions. She said, oh, have you just spoken to him? I said, no. And she said, oh, he's just left home. And I said, look, I think she then said to me, where, do you have to go somewhere? And I said, no, I don't. I said, where are you going? She said, well, I was just going to see a friend, but it doesn't matter. And I said, did you want to have a coffee? And she said, yes. So we went back down the hill and around into a cafe, and we sat for about 20 minutes, and she was able to ask me questions, and I was able to ask her questions. We shared information, and so I got a few more answers that I needed. And I mean, she was in shock, and she ordered a drink, and she said, look, I might not look stressed, she said, but it's just whirring inside me.
Yeah.
And so it was a really good outcome, and I felt really pleased having done it. My girlfriend was really pleased too, because it effectively represented for her, someone doing the good deed that she wished someone had done for her.
Yeah. And it could have potentially gone south as well.
It could have.
We talked about the pros and cons, didn't we?
Yes. Yeah.
Beforehand. So that was that.
And then there was the parents.
And then there was the parents, which you asked me to go and serve. And I must admit, my original reaction was, I'm not too sure if this is ethical or not. And so you sent me what I was serving. Obviously, as a process server, you have to read what you are serving so you know what you're serving. Because last thing you want to do is give somebody a death threat. So I read through it, and I was comfortable having read through it. Like I say, you weren't some sort of Glenn Close, bunny boiling weirdo. I read through it all. It was eloquently put. It was reasoned and it was informative, and the rationale behind what you were doing and why you was doing it was explained to the parents, and the fact that they'd been used
Prolifically.
as part of the lies, and,
Yes.
and you wanted to highlight to them what their son was, and the relationship and what
And how
have you.
he was using them as well.
Did you hear from the parents?
No, and to be honest, I didn't expect to.
Right.
No, I was, it was actually heartbreaking the extent to which he used them, I suppose. I thought it was really, really awful. And then clearly it was awful how he used them to elicit sympathy from me. And when we discovered everything that we discovered about him, I think the anger I had, I mean, there's the deception. So it was more shock at the deception, the level of deception. But what made me angry was the hours, days, weekends, months, where I would like to have been exploring, doing things together, being able to call, have conversations, explore, whatever one does in a relationship. All those moments where effectively I just had to get on with my life and amuse myself in other ways, which I'm quite capable of doing. But the frustration and the sadness in all those moments, and the anguish, I think, actually, is that hang on, I'm supposed to be involved with someone. They're saying that this is something, and yet I'm not experiencing the things that one is supposed to experience within a relationship, the joyful things. And it was the anger at the loss of all of that, I think. And so... yeah, again, this was all part of leveling the playing field, and this information. I mean, these people's lives continue on. It's happened to me for 11 months, but their lives will continue on based on lies that he's telling them. And I just think, well, it wasn't fair to me. It's not fair to them. So I think they deserve to know as well.
I think the final point as well that I want to sort of bring home about your story is, obviously we spoke throughout this process for free, but also we talked about the ramifications of your actions and what may or may not happen. You did have a visit from the police.
Oh gosh,
we obviously talked about this and I briefed you regarding this.
Yeah, this was very. So it sounds more ominous than it actually was. It was purely a confluence of events. My car had been stolen several months prior. On the day that you were the day that I was visiting his wife, not visiting her, trying to see her and had over these things. My car had been found, and that day at lunchtime, I'd been with the police already with my car, finally found, getting it back to my place, and they figured there might be some forensics to be done, and so the forensics police were going to be coming to my place later that day. Now, I couldn't change my timetable, so I thought, well, if they come and I'm not there, it doesn't really matter. They happened to come just after I'd gotten back from speaking to the wife, travelling all the way back across London, got in my front door, emotionally pretty wrought and exhausted as well. And just as I'd gotten off the text, actually I had gotten a text from Archie at that moment saying, have you done something silly?
Yeah, I remember that.
Quite extraordinary. And then he'd tried to call. Obviously, I didn't pick up. I was actually panicking a little bit at that moment, even though she'd said that he was back over the other side of town. And then sitting in my kitchen, just having a cup of tea, just trying to come down from the whole experience. And next thing, the doorbell rings. But it rings the exact same way that he used to press my doorbell, which is ding and then dong. And it was not just the usual way that people press it. So I thought it was him. and panicked, and then called the police on the police as transplants. And then while I'm on the phone to them, handing over his details, they ring again. I just said, oh, God. Anyway, I got off the phone from them, tried to call you. You were busy, but said you'd call back. Called my girlfriend, and she said, look, really, it cannot be him. It just can't be. And so then I made my way to the front door, and there was a slip that had come through, and it was from the police.
Oh, dear. Right, okay. Like I said, we could talk about this for hours. But I want to just end with a couple of questions that I've got. And what this is obviously a loaded question, but equally, I'm happy to have your honesty on the matter, because basically, if you slag me off, I'll just edit it, or the podcast will never go out. What's your thoughts about private investigators after having hired one?
Listen, I had a pretty good view of them before, and I have an even better one now.
That's the right answer. that's why I
get a discount for the next time round.
Yeah. I'll give you 20% off next time you have a relationship with somebody. Well, we said, didn't we, before we started the podcast, is part of the stuff that I do is background checks, and I've had somebody hire me to do a background check on somebody that they were about to have a relationship with because they'd come from another relationship. It is slightly tongue in cheek, but it's also genuine because, like I said, sometimes I do wonder genuinely what clients think about private investigators and what we do.
Listen, it's like I was thrilled to have you on my team, so to speak. It felt like having a guardian angel by your side. I think your background of detective work in the police really added to that sense of security and meant I could also ask questions that you could professionally give insight into whether to take this step, what this means as such. And I mean, I say this jokingly, but I genuinely mean it as well. I think everybody should have a PI on speed dial.
I'll have to start charging for that service. That's the only downside to it. And again, all right. And the golden question is there may be people thinking out there who've listened to this podcast is, why have you come on the podcast? Like I said to you, I was genuinely interested to have a client on just because people never hear it from your side of the fence. So what are you hoping to get from coming on the podcast and the experience that you've shared with us?
Interestingly, I mean, you were surprised when I said that I wanted to present information to the wife. I think that's, and I've had a number of people say to me, oh, did you tell the wife? And, oh gosh, I don't know that I would tell the wife. And I think that is a really, speaking to wives on the receiving end of it, I mean, I would say, I think you can expect a good outcome from telling the wife. She may not want to hear it, but I think deep down they do want to know. And if that's a message I can get out, is to don't be afraid, or don't just think, well, it's not my business, I won't interfere. I mean, you really are helping someone ultimately. And they may find out eventually one way or another, but in taking that step forward now, it means you will save them a lot of time, a lot of wasted years potentially, and a lot of spoiled memories as well. Yeah. That's probably part of it. And then the other one is to, get the message out there that, look, if you're feeling destabilized and unbalanced and as a result of someone's behavior, it's not a healthy relationship. Don't stay in it. Talk to them if things don't change. Give yourself time limits. Don't just think, oh, I'll keep trying. Yeah. Do the best you can, and if once you reach that time limit threshold, then it's time to act. Don't just waste years of your life.
Yeah. listen to the little voice. Jacqeline, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's been really interesting, slightly different tack to what I normally do, but I appreciate your time and sharing your story. This has been Diary of a Private Investigator, the Jacqeline Allen story. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Nathan. It's been a pleasure being on here.
No problems.